Welcome to the Final Frontiers radio show, where we spotlight inspiring missionary endeavors around the globe. Stay tuned to hear how you can personally get involved, helping the Lord's frontline soldiers effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. Today, we have a guest from India talking about national church planting missionaries in his country. We also have a story about starving children in a village that needs to be reached in Kenya, and a tale of inspirational opportunities from the Chin Mountains in the Buddhist nation of Myanmar. This is Josh Martin here today.
Yes.
And I am with one of my friends. I've been with him in India before. This is Solomon Bija, and he is from the state of Karnataka in India. That's in southern India. And his home base where he lives and his family lives is in Hubli. And so I've had the privilege of being with him. I got to spend about a week with him, and then I got to spend another week with his brother, Benny, and we were in a different part of Karnataka. Solomon, it's really good to have you here today. It's so good to see you again.
Me too, Josh, coming here after we meeting in India, and it's a great privilege for me to come and see you and talk to you.
I want to talk today about the preachers.
Yes.
And you have over 80, you said 87 or more, that are out there. Yeah. And I got to meet some. Every day we'd go out and we'd meet people. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of them that stick out in my mind. But Final Frontiers helps give them just a portion, so they have enough money to be able to help with some food needs and sometimes with traveling.
Yes.
But it does make a difference. And what you have is Pioneer Ministries there. Mm-hmm. How long have you been working with preachers there?
For the past 20 years, I'm closely working with the preachers in planting churches among the unreached, untouched, and unearthed people groups. And we are largely covering around 51 different people groups.
Wow.
Yes. And churches are being planted. The leaders from these groups have emerged to be pastors and taking the gospel to their own community, thereby reproducing churches.
And you have Timothy's out there that are helping.
Yes, besides Timothy's, each and every pastor, their duty is not to make a status quo, but rather to go even further, like Paul and Timothy. It's their duty. They consider it's their duty and responsibility to identify Timothy's in the church and raise them and train them as Timothy's.
Are some of these preachers, are they outside of Karnataka, or is it all inside that state?
Yes.
Okay, in the states around there.
In the states of Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka.
I remember when I first came to Hubli, I came from the west, from Goa State, and I was traveling across by train. And I remember going through huge areas of jungle in there, and then talking to you later, and you said that in the older days you would go out, and there was stories you said where you and another man would almost get lost in the jungle.
Certainly. Yes, the forest that we have seen is located in Western Ghats. It's such a thick forest, and there are full of wild animals, especially the elephants. And me and one of my co-worker, Devasai, we had been to a outreach in village, and while we were returning in the thick forest, rain, thunderstorm came, and thereby we lost our way, and we had to wander in the forest up to night 12 o'clock. And one thing that rescued us is that thunderstorm. Whenever it would thunder, we would see where there are no trees and then step further.
Yeah.
And eventually, when we heard the sound of motor vehicles, trucks, then we realized the way is this side. And then the motor vehicles sound rescued us on that day.
You could hear the road,
yes.
And so you headed for the road.
Yes.
When I was there, I can remember visiting some really amazing preachers, and some of the guys you showed me, like I remember one man who had major issues where he couldn't walk, and yet he was hopping. He would hop from one church to another. His people loved him. I can remember with your brother seeing places where there was a preacher where he talked about a whole troop of monkeys would come in every season and destroy the church roof, and it was leaking. So many stories.
Yes. The guy who opts himself and go is a paralytical patient. While he was his child, he lost his foot. He's married. He has 3 kids. But he goes about 3 villages pastoring churches, winning people to Christ. It's a sad part is 2 months ago, he lost his wife. So he's in dire need. Previously, his wife would go work and try to feed him, try to take care of him, and now he's all alone. His 3 children are out. They need our support. We need to send them. We need to rescue his children and put them in a proper school. This guy's name is Yashwant. He opts. He has no legs.
Right.
And pray for him. And the other person is by name Thomas. He has a government welfare constructed house, but in India, due to corruption, the engineers did no good job. Thereby, the roof is about to fall. During rain, it all leaks and they are unable to sleep. So they had to find some place to go during rain. So this is it. He is finding very difficult to stay there. He's got 3 daughters.
Wow.
And plus he's got 5 village churches to pastor every Sunday. So it's an enormous task. Without a motorcycle, he cannot reach out on Sunday. He has an aim at least 6 to 7 or 8 services on Sunday. But without motorcycle, he's being limited to only 3 services.
That is one of the major needs, is if they could just help with transportation, if they could have a motorcycle.
Yes, if motorcycle means a lot, because in India we do not have a public transportation that good. Our pastors had to rely on private transportation. And this private transportation, they are there only to make money. They exploit the situation. If the pastor sits into that vehicle and he takes at least 2 hours to move and reach to the destination, because every person on the road raise their hand, this guy stops to pick them up. He says the more overcrowded it, he gets more money. And thereby, the pastors, their schedules are disrupted. So the churches have to wait on him. So kindly pray that the Lord would provide them a motorcycle.
Could you tell us a little bit about what kind of persecution that they face from, say, some of the temples or Hindu priests?
Yeah, our pastors concentrate more on non-Christians. When they respond, our pastors try to nurture them in the Word of God. And these people, they are on fire for the Lord. They never stay quiet. They go out and preach the gospel. That's when the holy places over there, the temples, they think that these people are stealing. We are losing our men. They are no longer coming to our place of worship. That's why the priests get angry. They try to attack. And the second reason is the farmers and landlords who have hired these Christians prior. They would hire them for a cheap labor, 14 hours of labor, and they would be paid $1. Besides, when these people become Christians, they realize the gospel transformation takes place in them. They realize we need to work hard, we need to save money, we need to educate our children. Family, welfare. They begin to think his wife and children's welfare. So then they try to question their landlord. Why do you make us work so many hours and pay less? Why don't you pay according to the government labor laws? So the landlords get angry on us because they say we are taking away their labor force. The third persecution is from their own parents. Parents say, you have become a Christian, that's enough. Why do you go out and bother our neighbors? Why do you take your own sister and brother to the church? That church, they preach some God which is not our God, they are Western gods. So the parents try to apply pressure, they try to excommunicate him. Parents literally stop from sharing family property with the Christians. Our government is being ruled by radical Hindus. All the time they are trying to implement a strict law to bring back Christians back to Hindus. Please pray that the newborn Christians will stand firm in the Lord.
I can remember when I was there hearing some beautiful testimonies in those churches and how they would just talk about the idols, taking them off the shelves and their lives changing completely.
Yes.
Sometimes their parents kicking them out of the home. So these preachers do go through a lot. What are some of the biggest needs that these preachers have that we could pray for?
The preachers, right now, they're gathering in a house. House churches are going on. But most of these house churches are getting overcrowded because houses are very small and the number of converts increasing. So we need to provide them a common place. The second reason why common place is necessary is all the people who attend house church, they come from a different caste backgrounds. So if the house belongs to a low caste, the upper caste, middle class men hesitate to gather. In the same way, the low caste people cannot go and join a house church that belongs to a upper caste. So this is a conflict that's going on for a long, long time. It will stay there. But one solution is to provide them a common place of gathering. So even the upper caste says, if it is a land which is common to all of us, we will gladly come and worship.
It is hard for them. I can remember being there, and they would be in someone's home, and it is, even though the caste system is abolished, it is still in the hearts of the people, and so they still live that way, and it's uncomfortable, and it's hard. And I can remember also them having to, in some places, rent a place, and it would have a Hindu symbol on the outside, and they'd say, well, you can't talk about Jesus here. And so they do need funding for that. It's so much easier for them if they can have a public place to worship.
And the other need is Bibles, gospel tracts, plus motorcycles. This is the greatest need. The system in India is always against the pastor. So we need to understand his needs and provide him. He wants some gospel tools as well as mode of transportation. This is the pressing need.
It's been really good talking about preachers today. And there's so many stories I want to tell. But for this today, if you want to help with these preachers here, if you want to help Pioneer Ministries, if you want to help support a preacher in India through Final Frontiers, you can come and visit us at finalfrontiers.world. So Solomon, it's been good to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
We would like to introduce the Clean Heart Gospel tract, soon available in 23 languages. Around the world, they've proven to spark the curiosity of both children and adults because of the special toy magic slate on the back that is used as a visual aid to see the sins you've written down disappear. For every $1 given to produce these unique tools, there are on average about 6 conversions. If you would like to use this in your own church outreach program or help supply them to national preachers around the globe, visit us at finalfrontiers.world.
I'm Daniel Nelms.
And this is Josh Martin.
Josh, you were going to tell us today about your trip to Kenya, particularly to the town of Kisumu.
Right.
And that's in near Lake Victoria, isn't it? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's actually right on the border of the lake. You can actually go right down to the lake in that town. He took me down there, and I could see it, a portion of it that comes and swings up through Kisumu. But I was there during the hottest time of the year, they said, in Africa. In Kenya, that country, it was the hottest time of the year. There's one particular week, and I happened to be down there. And we were up in the mountains, and I was going around with our preacher there, Tom Okeo, and getting to meet a lot of different groups around that area. He just climbs up through there, and then he gets on a motorbike, and he just takes you all through these dusty roads out there, and you're just meeting people all the time. And a lot of them are not yet supported. I know the village that he lives in is right on the side of the mountain, and he tries to do extra work with plowing. You can get out there and you can do extra work for people, and you can earn a little bit of money. He's been trying to help the preachers, whether it be growing gardens, like getting seeds for that, or getting a cow, getting milk to some of these poor children around there. He's been trying to help the preachers and the preachers' wives actually come up with ways to start businesses to help them somehow. Him and his wife both were so thankful to Final Frontiers because some of the funding, the extra funding that came, he was able to take that and use that to start a meat business where she cuts up meat for the village that she's in, and she also cuts hair. She managed to slowly put away money and somehow be able to start a business where she got some clippers and everything. And so they have a little shop there, and they're trying to help the people in their community. It's a Catholic community.
Sure.
Very, very strongly Catholic. So it's been
So
difficult.
they've become tent makers.
They have. They've done a good job. And he's trying to teach the other preachers to do that.
And because they're so close to the lake, there's a lot of agriculture in this area then. It
is green. It stretches up through there for quite a ways and touches the mountains. And there's a lot of fish. They sell a lot of fish business. I've seen one preacher wife out there with little tiny fish, and they're trying to swat the flies off these big tables, and they just sell these dried fish and make them into soup. And there's flies everywhere.
Delicious.
Yeah. They kept telling me, I want you to come back. I want you to come back. There's a poor village where he lives of 100 families. Every family has like 5 to 6 kids per family, usually.
And there's one family in particular that you told us about before, and I'd really like you to tell the listeners about that.
Yeah, this is the heartbreaking story. Even my home church got a burden for it and tried to help this family. 3 times we traveled up the mountain, and it wasn't that far away from Brother Tom's house. The story goes that they started hearing in the village this crying at night. They'd hear kids crying. And they went up there and they found that one of the families, 15 children in this family, and they had run out of food. They were not eating. And these kids were crying in the evenings. And I know somebody donated them a couple of goats. When I went there, they had 2 goats, and they were trying to feed them leaves and things, and they would use the goat milk a little bit. And what they had done is they created this porridge. It's like this orange, just gunk coming out of the cup slowly, and I don't even know what they were using for any kind of substance to it. I'm not sure what they had. I'm not sure how they were making it, but it wasn't a lot. It's just hot, and they'd put it in these mugs, and all the family would sit around. So one night I went up there. They invited us up, and we got in the dark and got in all bunched in this room, and they have these little cups, and they're drinking, the little kids, the parents, and we're all in there together, and it just broke my heart to see that. That's all they have. They would try to do it like once in the morning, once in the evening, have a cup of porridge.
So they're trying to survive on just a tiny cup of porridge, and they're not getting enough food. They're crying from the hunger pains at night. Right. Given the choice, if they had the resources, what would they be eating?
Everybody around there eats what's called ugali. They kind of make this little cake of cornmeal. They shape it into a white cake, and then they all take chunks of that and eat it. This family here, if they could just have that, the cornmeal, for a bag of that, it's like $32 American money. What they would do is they'd take the cornmeal, and they'd take a bag of wheat. Each one of those is about $32 each. So
how long would that last?
That could last about a month
for 15 them. People.
For 15 kids, they said for $64, I think it was, they'd get those 2 bags, mix them together, and make it into something of substance. That's what they're used to.
Sure.
Now imagine if they could have beef, or they could have actual meat and get some protein more.
Meat, beans, vegetables.
Yeah, get some beans. Yeah. It would be such a blessing. And they can't afford that, but that's what they wanted.
It's their dream. We might have a desire to go out and have some nice lobster bisque or a juicy steak, and they just want some cornmeal.
Yeah,
it's a stark contrast. Now, as sad as that is, there was a tragedy in that family recently. Tell us a little bit about that.
My church was trying to help feed them for a few months, seeing if we could get them some food, and within about 3 or 4 months later, suddenly, Brother Tom calls me back, and he says, one of the children have died. And it wasn't one of the little kids. It was a 20-year-old girl. What I didn't know, she had kind of hidden off in the shadows when we were taking pictures, and she was real shy because she suffered from seizures from a very young age. She actually had to drop out of school at a young age, I think in grade 4. Because of these seizures. And so she just helped at home. She would go and help at the local church. She would help clean. She would do odd jobs. The children in that community loved her, and everybody was brokenhearted about it. The family, the younger children were just, they were crying. They were so hurt. I saw pictures, and I saw how they had to bury her soon there in the village, and I still remember seeing the mound of dirt there, and that entire family, 14 kids, with the loss of their sister. And she had bathed the children. She had fed them. She'd gotten the porridge together for them. She'd helped her mother so much. And
big sister.
Yeah, all the kids in the community were crying too. All these people came to that funeral, and they didn't have the money to even do the funeral.
Just imagine if they had just a little bit of money to provide her the medicine that she needed.
Yeah, there was no money for medicine, let alone food. There wasn't
it's such a tragedy,
there.
Just one after another. Tell us a little bit about the children. What are their dreams? What are their aspirations? There's one in particular.
Yeah, she is in high school right now, and I'm not sure her age, but she was one of the next kids down. And her dream right now is just to be able to finish school. I mean, just to be able to get through. And beyond that, she wants to get educated so that she can come back and help the kids in her family. She wants to help her siblings. That's her dream. And she's worked hard. I mean, she's learning. She's got English down real good. She's sharp, I could tell, But there's not the funding there to help her get through all of that. So she would love to have more education.
And what about the parents? I mean, obviously this is not a situation that's come about by a lack of work ethic or laziness.
They're really not lazy. The dad, he spends all day trying to find work. He tries all these different things. The one thing we were trying to do was get a plow for him. If we could just get a decent plow, boy, and we still haven't been able to do that for him. If he could have that, then he could go around there during just right before the rainy season and be hired by all these fields that are in that area to plow.
All he wants to do is make a living and provide for his family.
That's what he wants.
And it's just some of the struggle that's in Africa. It's not as if you can go to the unemployment office and they'll set you doing working in a job that you hate.
Right.
Even a job that you hate isn't an option. There is no option. It's very difficult. Just think of what we could do if, with the funding, we want to start a feeding center in that town.
And if you did start a feeding center, this is what he told me. He said 500 kids would immediately just converge on the site in that village. And here's something that's kind of neat is his father was a teacher. He was a Christian man, but both his parents have died now, but their home that is just down from there, they said, boy, we would just give this over for a feeding center. You guys could take this home, and my dad loved kids. It'd be a great dream. So the property's there. It's available.
Sure. Everything is available. The red carpet has been rolled out for us in this community. But to feed 500 children, that's a major undertaking for us. If you'd like to help fund Touch a Life and our Daily Bread program in particular, to learn more, just visit finalfrontiers.world.
Would you like for world missions to be fresh and exciting in your home? Here at Final Frontiers, we work hard to produce a full-colour magazine report with inspiring stories, imparting global facts, and missions opportunities and updates every quarter throughout the year. You can sign up for your copy at finalfrontiers.world.
Your inquiries and comments are important to us. If you have questions or perhaps subject matter that you would like to have addressed on this show, please visit us at finalfrontiers.world.
In Ephesians 4, God reveals 5 gifts designed to bring us from conversion to spiritual maturity and perpetuate the church. These gifts are apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. The word apostle is the Greek word from which we derive the English word missionary. He lays the foundation that the others will build upon. The others are ministers. A prophet is an exhorter of the word, not a mystic fortune teller. An evangelist is an evangelizer who wins the lost, not a traveling preacher who ministers in churches. And the other 2 positions, pastor and teacher, are self-explanatory. The missionary is called and equipped by God to be the first messenger to enter a culture or region. His job is to proclaim Christ and establish a beachhead from which other ministers will come to expand and mature the new converts. He declares the message that the true God does not take, he gives. He does not destroy, he restores. He does not hate, he loves. He is not a man who became a God. He is the God who became a man. He does not demand a sacrifice, he became our sacrifice. He did not live then die. He lived, died, and now lives again. Such a message has never been heard nor imagined until the missionary comes. He paves the way for future ministers who will follow him. Their combined efforts will result in producing more missionaries, preachers, evangelists, pastors, teachers, and so on. Today, many wanting to get paid for ministry often call themselves a missionary to get support. There are even self-proclaimed missionary plumbers and missionaries to the fashion industry. Such titles are absurd and unbiblical. These industries do not require missionaries, but rather faithful witnessing from local church members. It's not what you call yourself that makes you a missionary. It's what you do. Understanding the true biblical purpose of a missionary is key to fulfilling the Great Commission. I'm John Nelms. To learn more about missions, order a copy of my book, The Greater Mission, on our website at finalfrontiers.world.
Hi, this is Michael Horn.
And this is Joshua Martin.
And today we're going to look at Myanmar, formerly known as Burma. Recently, you went there on a missions trip. I think you went and visited Brother Gil Anger.
Yes, I love that country, and Gil Angers, he's the one that inspired me into missions, and so he had invited me to see this work that he's doing there. He's calling it Burma and Beyond.
Okay, that's a great name. And we sent some of our test units of our PowerPack Nano to see if this was a feasible, viable product to use for evangelism in these remote areas. Tell us a bit about what happened and how it went.
I took some. They were all in Burmese, and so you had the Burmese Bible, and you also had the Jesus film on there. And first I was down in Yangon. I took them to Vel Siama that we have down there, and I left some with him so that he could hand them out and he could use them. We showed some of the kids there. The orphanage kids were just kind of looking at the screen and staring at it and everything, and they enjoyed that. But I know he's going to use them around there. And then I went up to Chin State, and up there it's all Chin Phalam, it's not Burmese. And so the ones that I had left to give out, there was hardly any Burmese-speaking people.
Right, and I'm assuming Burmese and Chin are as opposite as English and Spanish.
Yeah, and the Burmese are more national to that area.
Right.
That's their national language, but there's a lot of other ethnic groups that have been in that culture for a long time. And the Chin, they came from more Chinese descent.
Right.
And so their language is very different, and you have two specific dialects of Chin, but this was Chin Phalam. And so I'm there with them. I get to see Gil Angers' ministry there, and they were having a big children's conference. They had over 60 kids, I think.
Oh, wonderful.
And by the end of it, there were 30 of them that had accepted Christ.
Oh, that's amazing.
But there was this one girl there who, remember all of them speak Chin.
Yes.
She speaks Burmese.
So it's like God's plan here.
Yeah, it was this neat little miracle where this little girl's coming, and even though she can't understand all the preaching, she's not getting all of it. They're having to give her special treatment on the side, and giving her the gospel.
Yes.
She's still faithfully coming every day. She's playing the games with the kids. She's kind of off by herself sometimes. She'd find some friends. But she was getting the message. She was understanding the gospel. Her name was Moon. That's how you pronounce her name. And so I took one of these PowerPack Nanos and I gave it to her, and I can still remember 2 different areas where she would sit. And then her other friends, of course, because they're looking at a movie, they want to come up and see it, but they didn't understand it. She did. And so just getting to see her watch that intently, that made her like wow, I'm important now.
I'm the center of attention here.
Yeah. And what was really awesome was then several days later, she made a profession of faith. She accepted Christ. And so we had, like I said, 30-some, half of that group that had gotten saved. She was one of them. Then I had the privilege of being able to go to her house. So there's this little Burmese house out there, very, very poor, thatched sides and roof and everything, and the family was very poor. Their grandparents were living there with them. It was all real crowded, and we just all got down in the dirt, like underneath their house, and we were showing them how to use the PowerPack Nano.
Okay. I guess you weren't able to stay around to see how it went with the rest of the family.
Not too much, but what's been exciting is I've heard that this girl has stayed faithful. She's coming back to the actual church services now. I've seen pictures of her singing special music in there and everything.
Great.
It's even though she's Burmese, she's been doing things in the church, and then I actually saw pictures of her and other children just on their knees. They were all in a group, and I can see tears coming down her eyes, this little girl.
Right.
And she's praying for other people to get saved. You can imagine her wanting her family to be saved. But the PowerPack Nano, in the language of Burmese, is in her home.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we can only hope that the Lord works with the rest of the family.
Yes.
That'll be a blessing. Are you hoping to go back there?
Yes. We're hoping in the next several months, I'm hoping to get back. And we plan to take a solar charger for that family because they don't have good ways of charging it. It's hard for them. They have to go somewhere else and find a way to get it charged. So we're going to take them a solar charger. I'm hoping to meet them again. And then we also have the devices now with Chin Phalam.
Which will get the rest of the children.
Yes. The goal is to go up into the mountains around there, the Chin Mountains, and see if we can't hand out more to very, very poor areas.
That's wonderful. So I guess this was a good proof of concept that this PowerPack Nano it's going to work. It's going to reach those that can't read. It's going to help bring those professions of faith and bring people to the Lord. And that's why I got the whole project going from there.
It's been exciting. It was exciting to see that happen there. It's a real draw card. It brings them all in, and they want to listen to it.
Yes. Now, for those who aren't quite as familiar with it, the PowerPack Nano is kind of like a small little MP3 player. It's got a small little screen.
Right.
We have the Jesus film on there. We can also put on videos from the local pastor. Just everything to bring the gospel to those who don't understand the written word.
Right. You've been listening to the Final Frontiers radio show, funded by sponsors like you. Thank you so much for joining us. Through the funding of national and native preachers, we endeavor to effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. If you want more information, visit www.finalfrontiers.world. That's finalfrontiers.world.